Hi everybody, Sydney Rock back here to talk to you about negotiation. Actually, I don't want to talk specifically about negotiation today. I want to add some clarifications about yesterday's video on the crash course on logical fallacies. Because the thing is, as important as it is to at least be familiar with logical fallacies or the three broad categories. There are probably more, but I consider three the most frequent categories that you encounter. All of this fits into a broader framework. This framework is called the trivium. It's actually how people were educated right up until the early 19th century when the Prussians basically reinvented school and how it works. And the three subjects of the trivium are grammar, logic, and rhetoric. And the thing is, with the trivium, and what makes it so awesome, is that they're not just three subjects. When you combine them in that order, it actually becomes a method of critical thinking. So basically with the grammar, you understand a basic knowledge of what is and what words mean. And an analogy that's often used is that, let's say that grammar is like familiarizing yourself with the different Lego blocks. And then logic is understanding how those different Lego blocks fit together in a way that makes sense. And that's why the logical fallacies are so important. And then the last phase, which is rhetoric, is when you're like set loose to build whatever you want with these Lego blocks. So I really wanted to put this into context because, yes, yesterday I jumped into the logical fallacies because I think that it's probably the layer that most people focus on, and I think it's the one that'll have the most impact on most people's lives. And I also think that most of the time, most of the words that people use mean what they think they mean. But it's very important to make sure that you've established a grammar before you go into scanning whatever's said for logical fallacies. Basically, there's no point scanning something for logical fallacies until you're absolutely sure that you know what all the words mean. So I really wanted to point that out and make sure that, yes, logical fallacies are important, they're great. It's probably the layer of the trivium that you'll spend the most time in, but it is a layer in a broader system that's a method of critical thought, and I think that when you're armed with this, it could help you not just in negotiations actually, but in anything, and it can help you learn anything much faster. And that's why, as a matter of fact, in my first video, well, after the introduction video, the first video that I went into was on the three elements of a negotiation. I really wanted to make sure that everyone was clear on what a negotiation is and what makes it up. I wanted to introduce you to the different Lego blocks. And I guess the rest of this channel, when I don't feel like going off on a tangent, will be about how these blocks fit together in a non-contradictory way. So what I wanted to, well, yeah, basically I think it's important, and oh yeah, now I remember what I was going to say. For the last layer, which is rhetoric, it's really just a question of knowing how to structure a speech. And for that, I would highly recommend Toastmasters. I probably should have mentioned this in my introduction video, but I've been a member of Toastmasters for several years. I think like 3 years or 4. I've lost count really, but I was in Toastmasters both as a member. I've been in the executive committee for about 1.5 years. Sadly, because of circumstances, I haven't attended a meeting in a while, but I know that what's great about Toastmasters is that it's a learn by doing structure. And as far as how to organize your thoughts into a speech, it's a really great endeavor to get yourself used to speaking in public, both in the context of a prepared speech or in impromptu speaking. And that, once you have the words and you know what the words mean, you've established that base knowledge, and you're able to structure your thoughts in a non-contradictory way, or in other words, a way that is absent of logical fallacies, then Toastmasters could really help to kick in and give you that edge to deliver what you know in a convincing and compelling way. So those are the main things that I wanted to throw out in this video. It's a bit of a short one today. And another thing, actually, there are two things I wanted to clarify. Actually, one and a half. First of all, I only have like 6 or 7 ties, so eventually you're going to start seeing the same ties over and over again. Just wanted to mention that. And the other thing I wanted to mention with regard to yesterday's video, when I mentioned that I present the false dilemma dozens of times a day, I was thinking of busy days, actually. Like when the day is really dead, I'd be lucky if I present a false dilemma 3 times during that day. I don't do it with every client. And anyway, that was just an anecdote that I was mentioning. The broader point of what I was saying in the crash course on logical fallacies is that the buyer and the seller have conflicting incentives, even though they're both working towards the same thing. So when you have a competition, quote unquote, where you have conflicting incentives that are working towards the same thing, sometimes it gives incentive to both parties to present fallacious arguments, and that's why it's really important to be able to scan whatever is being said for logical fallacies. And as a matter of fact, since I'm on this tangent, it's also important to scan what you say and what you do for logical fallacies. I know I presented a few in the last video, and identifying those will be left as an exercise. How's that? Yeah, one thing that you can really do is when you say something that has a fallacy in it, to just acknowledge that. And that can help you gain trust with whoever you're negotiating with. So, on one hand, yes, if you think you can pull a fast one and you're willing to take that risk, go for it. As long as you're not committing fraud or threatening people, I don't really mind. I think that there's a lot of info out there on logical fallacies. I've presented some myself. Yeah, that's an interesting point, and something that I find worthy of mention is that whenever I present a logical false dilemma to a client, part of me is really hoping that they'll flat out say, "Hey, you just offered me a false dilemma." It hasn't happened so far. The closest I've come is, the clients happen several times a day on a busy day, that'll say, "Is there a third option?" That's a sign that the client is seeing through my bullshit. But it would be really cool to someday serve a client where they're like, "Hey, wait, you just presented a false dilemma." And I'm pretty sure that little moment could skyrocket the negotiation or the interaction into a whole new level of connectedness with the client, even though we just met. So that's basically it for today. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this video. Again, as always, if you want to know more and you want to subscribe or share this, like this, and share this with your friends, as always, there's a link at the bottom here where you can add your email to my mailing list and get some nice goodies and things like that for people who are interested to know more. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.